sinners and saints. Dust off those horns and halos. It's time for Alan After Dark.
Bitches, I have blue balls.
What?
Oh my God.
No.
Balls are not a toy.
Not from some sort of weird sexual frustration. It's just colder than a witch's titty up in here. Tennessee hasn't been this cold since, well, last year. But still, it's colder than fuck. Or a witch's titty, or, well, y'all heard me. How y'all doing? Sinners and saints, you feeling well? You feeling sexy? You feeling pussy? You horny? I hope you are if you want to be. Well, obviously, with blue balls, I probably am not horny because it's not connected to sexual frustration. And if you're asking if I'm drunk or high, I'm going to plead the fifth, okay? And I don't mean a fifth of vodka either, Jesus. Or is it a whiskey or bourbon? I don't know. Oh, goodness gracious, we are really starting off this episode really fucked up, aren't we? Well, I guess I'm wanting to be a little bit more carefree this week because the last few episodes have been pretty damn heavy. While I do like discussing some of the more difficult issues, I really want us to be able to have fun, especially on this platform because the real world is becoming so dark and concerning. There's going to be plenty of dark episodes in the future, so we might as well party and celebrate while we still have the chance. I will say this to all the listeners that are not in the United States. I'm sorry. We're embarrassed too. You know, only 49.9% of the voting populace voted for the orange turd, and that was enough to do all the damage that's been done already. What really hurts me on that is that we're going to suffer worse than we have in decades, but we know that the whole world will as well, as we seem to be taking this dark turn of science denial, ignorance, the dismantling of democracy here. It's all a nightmare that I wish we could all wake up from. But unfortunately, it's not. I think of the Ukrainians, that initial shock of realizing the Russians were invading their country. Finally, you had to just deal with it and fight back. Well, we're still in the shocked stage, I think, here, but we are going to fight back, and we're going to fight back at every level there is. City level, county level, state, federal, you name it. We are going to fight. We are not going to let them just erase us. This may sound absolutely nuts, but this week I've been thinking about Abraham Lincoln and the notion that he was gay or bisexual. Yes, he was married to Mary Todd Lincoln. They had 4 children, but a lot of the talk stems from Lincoln's own letters and some of his personal views of certain men that were in his life. And when I got to thinking about it, I thought it's very interesting that after all these years, Lincoln is still an icon, a man of mystery. You know, he really wasn't a very attractive man physically, but you know what? If a guy looked like that and came into some of the bars here in the South, in the Bible Belt, there'd be guys all up in that. I'm telling you, who doesn't love a rolling the hay with ugly every once in a while? You know, bumping ugly kind of works in that situation, doesn't it? But I really wanted to kind of delve into that just a little bit and talk about why it's possible, but it's probably not true. Let's start way back on New Year's Day, 1841. Abraham Lincoln was a state legislator in Illinois, and he read in the newspaper that his roommate for quite a few years, Joshua Speed, was selling his Springfield General Store and was moving back to his family home. Lincoln hadn't been told about this, and he would describe that in a letter as the fatal 1st of January. And he wrote in a letter to a friend that he was now the most miserable man living. He went into a Great Depression. Apparently the month before New Year's Day, he had initially broke off his engagement with Mary Todd, but he did, of course, as we all know, did go on to marry her, and they had 4 kids. It seems that there are 4 men in Lincoln's life that people believe, some people, not all historians, not all psychologists or human interest people believe, but they were Billy Green, who was a co-worker at the general store, Elmer Ellsworth, who was an Army officer and a really good friend, David Derrickson, who was Lincoln's bodyguard during the Civil War, and, of course, Joshua Speed, who seems to be one that he truly felt love for. Well, the thing is that at that time, it wasn't unusual for men to sleep together in the same bed. It was a matter of a convenience sometimes, and it could be a money-saving thing. If you were living in a small apartment, say, and there was only one bed, and there were 2 guys, you would sleep in the same bed. It didn't necessarily mean anything. But if you take into consideration the letters and documents from Abraham Lincoln's life, it really does seem that he loved these men. We all know that love is varied. There's not just romantic love. There's family love. There's friendship love. There is romantic love. They all have parameters that are identical, but there are different aspects of each one as well. But I do believe that, especially with men, it seems, I'm basing this on my personal experience, that given the right circumstances, the right situation, a straight man would be intimate in certain ways with a gay man. I think it's just part of the nature of the beast, for the lack of a better phrase that I can think of right now. Oh, God, maybe the vodka is kicking in. But the thing is that at the time of Lincoln's life, he could talk about men almost in a romantic way and it not be challenged about sexuality. I think it was Carl Sandburg. He described Joshua Speed as a streak of lavender. And that phrase became synonymous with describing a man as being effeminate. It went on to be used as a description for a gay man at that time. And I think, you know what? A streak of lavender, not a bad way to call somebody gay, I guess. I don't know. Is lavender? It's all right. I don't have anything in my wardrobe that's the color of lavender. But you know what? I digress. But today, in this generation, well, all you've got to do, and we know this for a fact, in American politics, the most anti-gay politicians, the male politicians that are just absolutely almost violent in their hatred of gay men, well, we all know that they're sneaking down to the nearest bathhouse or finding a glory hole and sucking dick all night long and getting plowed bareback. It's been proven over and over again each time that the ones who are the most anti-something are using that as a deflection, hopefully as camouflage, to cover up that they're actually the ones doing what they're actually criticizing. But I gotta ask, if you were going to fuck Abraham Lincoln, would you ask him to leave his stovepipe hat on? I'm just curious. You know, he was the tallest president in our history. He was 6 feet 4 inches tall. That's one hell of a tree to climb, even if it is an ugly one. Have you ever been attracted physically to a president? And if so, which one? My guess would be President Obama, because I can't really think of anybody else that was even close to being really cute. I guess President Clinton, but no, I don't think I'd want to do him. But do you think about dick size of our politicians? I mean, well, the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau. Somebody once asked what was the best place to visit in Canada. And I guess my answer of Justin Trudeau's underwear wasn't a good answer. Well, it was for me. I mean, I don't know about all of you, but that's where I would like to be. Jesus, he is fucking hot as fuck. And he's smart. Well, Prime Minister Emmanuel Macron of France. Damn, I'd pay money to see Macron and Trudeau get it on. They're friends too, so you never know what's going on behind those closed doors. And Trudeau is on the market now. He's getting divorced, right? I believe. Am I right? I could be wrong. And you know how the French are. They'll get jiggy with anything. And I love that about them. Holla. I bet you all don't remember Congressman Robert Wexler. He was a congressman in the 90s, a Democrat from Florida. Oh my God, I thought he was hot as hell. I'd gargle his marbles, that's for sure. Damn. Actually, he was a cute Bill Clinton. He looked like Bill Clinton would have wanted to look like. And he was very eloquent in speech and just very sexy to look at. It's too bad that Anderson Cooper couldn't be more like Robert Wexler, but I used to like Anderson Cooper, but when he abandoned Kathy Griffin, I'm like, I'm done with you. And then he defended that interview that CNN did, that softball interview with the orange turd. And I was done with him. I stopped following him on social media, and I don't listen to him. I don't watch him anymore. Yeah, I was very disappointed in his behavior. I don't care what Kathy Griffin had done. It was absolutely blown out of proportion, really. I know it might have looked outrageous, and you can hate me all you want about that picture of the mask with ketchup on it, but she was tricked by a photographer. But she was one of Anderson Cooper's closest friends for years. She stuck by him when he did finally come out of the closet. And he does that to her. He chose his money and his career over her, even though he is the heir of the Gloria Vanderbilt fortune. I mean, seriously? You know what? If y'all don't like my opinion of him, so be it. But I don't hate him or anything. I just don't watch him anymore, and I don't follow him on social media. He can do whatever he wants, I guess, but bitches, I still like Kathy Griffin. She's been through hell and back, and she's still around, and she's still fearless and flawless. If men had half the balls that she does, they might actually get somewhere. But everything that she said about people has been true, right? But who am I kidding? If Anderson Cooper showed up at my front door and whipped his dick out, yeah, I'd jump on that thing. I'd make him suck me too, though. He's going to blow me too. It's not going to be a one-sided thing on that one. A little bit of anger fucking. Hot and sweaty. Sounds kind of nice, doesn't it? Even on a day that feels like we're somewhere on Antarctica at McMurdo Station, even though it is summer down there, but still, I think summer gets up to maybe like 0 degrees Celsius, maybe, something like that. No, it doesn't. Not that high. No. 0 degrees Fahrenheit. Jesus. Maybe. You know what? I'm not a scientist, so I better not even say what the high temperature could be. You get what I'm saying, right? But nobody can melt ice like Henry Cavill anyway, so why am I even discussing the hotness of anybody else when none of them holds a candle to Henry? And yes, I know that Henry and his girlfriend welcomed their first child into the world. That only tells me that he's potent. Really potent. Whoa, I nearly forgot Pete Buttigieg. Now that's a hottie, isn't he? And God, can he debate? He can destroy any right-winger in any debate. He is so good. And he's a family man. He's got his husband. They've got 2 children. He's very caring. He's military. Oh, my God. And I know you all seen the pictures. He was in one of those 5K races, and he was running without a shirt. And, whew, you could have drowned a toddler in my underwear. Jesus. Sopping wet. Whew, Lord have mercy. Yeah, I know. You're all rolling your eyes and thinking, God damn, Alan needs to get some. And you know what? You're all right. I do. I really need some. Still suffering from a little bit of cabin fever. Well, I'm not going out tonight, but I will be going to happy hour tomorrow night. Not that that really matters, and I guess the big surprise there is that I'm missing a happy hour, right? You're all used to me going almost every night. At least it seems like that, even though, no, I don't. I respect Pete's marriage, but if I had a chance, I would jump all over that too. And don't lie, you all would too. So after having said all of that gibberish, let me ask you this. Would there be a deal breaker when it comes to hooking up with somebody? Well, I can tell you right up front, Henry Cavill could be doing whatever he wants to do, and there's no deal breaker for him with me. But I'll give you an example. You know, I've mentioned the Netflix show Heartstopper, and it's still my number one show. I just think it's amazing. It's so good. It's so emotional. And Kit Connor, who plays Nick Nelson on the show, he's over 18, and he is really a sexy guy. But I happened to catch him on video. I was watching something, and it turns out that he's a smoker. It's probably not the best example because I probably would still do him even though he's a smoker. But in general terms, if a person is a smoker, I'm not really so keen on that, and I wouldn't want that in my house. Smoking tends to be like a taboo thing now. It's not the most common thing like it was 20 and 30 and 40 years ago. But I remember hooking up with a guy, and he was a smoker. I didn't realize it until we hooked up and we were at my apartment at the time. I was really maybe this is a gay thing, I was really into antiques and things, but very specific. I preferred print, art, and things like that. But I had found, it was called a relish bowl, and it had this beautiful gold trim and this design, and I loved it. And I used it for a centerpiece on my living room table. We were sitting on my couch, and he just decides to light up, and I told him, I'm like, I don't allow smoking in my house. And he was just like, oh, you're one of those, and continued to light up. And then he dipped the ash off his cigarette into my relish bowl. And I just looked at him, and I was like, oh, no, you didn't. You just put that ash in one of my antiques. And he looked at me funny like I was the one who was crazy. And I was like, I'm sorry, you need to go. And he was like, what the fuck, man? Jesus. And I'm like, I asked you not to smoke in my house, and you did it anyway. And then you desecrate one of my antiques, and you think I'm going to just tolerate that? No, get the fuck out. So maybe that one experience turned me off to cigarette smokers. I know that there are plenty of cigarette smokers that are polite and decent, but I see too many flinging a cigarette out their windows. I remember back in my hometown when I was just little, there was a wildfire that was started by someone who flicked a cigarette out their window. It ignited a field and got caught in some dry trees, and they like to never got that under control. It got scary for about 6 hours until I got it contained. But I was just like, not everybody has to accept your bad behavior, and not everybody has to accept your habits. If somebody didn't like me drinking, I would have to say, I understand that, and we would just go on our own way. I would hope, though, that people can tell the difference between a person who drinks socially and an alcoholic, because despite how much I talk, the most I drink in a week might be 2 nights a week, perhaps 3 at happy hour. But if it's during the week happy hour, I do not drink heavily. Heavier drinking happens on the weekends when it's more social. And even that, I'm not talking like drinking myself into oblivion, for God's sake. But I can understand that. And I've seen drinking break up people. Well, I got to be honest. One of the guys that I tried to date years and years and years ago, when I was still into the notion of dating, we had hooked up and we decided to start dating. And one weekend we decided to go to the club as a couple. And we were just sitting at the bar, and he was just getting trashed, and his behavior become more ridiculous and unruly and aggressive and insulting. I was embarrassed. I could never get over that embarrassment. So we broke up. But I knew that was going to come anyway, because he was the one who bragged about slutting around. He actually told me one time that I think it was 3 guys in one night. He had hooked up with one in the parking lot, come back in, hooked up with another guy in the parking lot, come back in, and took a 3rd one home. Now, I'll give you credit for that. If you could have that much endurance and that stamina, more power to you. I might have had that kind of strength when I was 21 and 18 and 16, but you get past 35, yeah, the old engine doesn't hum as quickly as it used to, or something like that. But I guess that's the idea of a one night stand in the first place, right? You're looking at someone, you're judging that person based on how they're acting, how they look, and all that. If they don't meet your requirements at that point, then you just don't bother with it, right? At least on the most superficial of levels, what would be the things that would prevent you from actually hooking up with a guy or approaching them for a possible hookup? I don't know. I definitely have a type, and we've talked about that before. You know, a stockier type, a football, rugby type. But I've been attracted to people that didn't fall under that category. You know, like I like hairy-chested men. I like gingers. I like dark-headed men. Well, I've liked men of every color of hair. I guess it would be, if I was watching them and debating on approaching them, it would be how they're acting, how they're treating people. Are they obnoxious? Are they being just fun? But also, we always get those vibes, and I would have to know that too. You know, I've approached people and talked to them for a few minutes and then get the vibe and realize that, no, this isn't going to happen. And you just say, I'm sorry, I'm going to go get me a drink, and then you go get a drink and go somewhere else and just leave them behind. It's funny how when I think back on it, still being in a bigger city, but it wasn't the biggest community, how did we wind up getting away with that? I guess we just assumed that if we walked away from a person that we just would never be friends anyway, perhaps. I suppose. I don't know. But I'd be curious to hear what your requirements are, if you have any. If you've ever watched Treasure Island Media porns, I don't believe that there's any requirements at all, except for that you have a dick and it shoots out spunk. Did I just say spunk? I did. Wow. Yeah, I must be tripping. Thank you for hanging out with me on this episode of Alan After Dark. I hope you've had some fun and aren't too confused with my babbling, but we did have a good time, right? And I hope to see you next week. Remember, take life by the balls and be real. We'll see you soon.